Today I'm going to continue to lay out my evidence in my case against contractors on the crimes they commit against their own crews. So stick around. If you're new here, welcome. If you are returning, welcome back. This is a channel where I normally try to help young foremen be better foremen and journeymen transition into the foreman position. I'm currently working on a series of videos to try to help contractors because I think they do a terrible job of managing their field workers. And you know, I don't mean to be obnoxious, but you know, I'm trying to come from a position of love here. But sometimes you have to issue some tough love. So that's what's happening here now. I'm highlighting some of the crimes that contractors commit against their own workers in an effort to try to make money on their projects. And look, I need your help. So, you know, make no mistake about it. I'm picking a fight. I'm picking a fight here with the management teams of these contractors. But I can't fight them if they don't come in the ring. So I need you to share this video out to all your upper level management, project managers, estimators, CFO, president, contractor, whoever. Let's get them in here. Let's have a little discussion on what's going on out in their field, and let's see if we can fix some of that stuff. Please, give me some help. Share this out. Let's get them in here. I ain't scared. Okay, so when we were last together, I told you that in this video I was going to show you how to import a task integrated estimate to create a master schedule, and then write point and click rolling schedules for the crews so that we can track what they're doing. Now, I also told you that you can use any tools you want, but I'm going to use the tools I want. And if you want to write yourself an overly complicated fancy pants schedule that no one understands but you, and use it to watch your project go in the toilet, that's fine with me. But I'm the guy out in the field, or whoever is managing your project, he or she is the person in the field who actually has to turn a profit for you. So those people, they don't understand your schedules and your terminology and, you know, your tools. So I'm going to suggest some different tools to you that could be used in the field by anyone. And we're going to take a look at that today. So let's get started. Okay, once again, this is Electrical Bid Manager by Vision Infosoft. This is the electrical estimating software that I like to use. You may use something different. That's fine with me. It'll work just as well. As a matter of fact, if you do spreadsheet estimating, that can work for this also. So don't get too hung up on, you know, the product that I'm using. It's just what I like and what I'm comfortable with. This will work with any system, just about, except wild ass guessing. So, you know, if that's how you estimate, by wild ass guessing, then this probably isn't going to be very informative for you. Otherwise, I guess the first thing I'd like to say is that if you're going to take the time to put together an estimate on a project, okay, and pick a number and say this is how much we're going to build it for, then in my opinion, by default, that estimate becomes the goal. And if that estimate is the goal. Anyone who has studied goal setting knows that in order to effectively achieve a goal, you need to break it down into milestones, okay, and attack it in the right order, and just go step by step through that list of milestones until you get to the end. Once you arrive at the end, you should have achieved your goal. So that's why it is so important to create a task integrated estimate, because ultimately your crews are going to be the group of individuals that are going to turn that estimate into reality. And if you want them to be able to do that consistently for you, profitably, then they need to understand that information. And that's why it should be broken up in task format. Now, what we're going to look at is going to be a pretty aggregate, in other words, finely developed task integrated estimate. But what I'm going to suggest to you is that the larger your project, the less aggregate it's going to be, okay? What we're looking at is a small project. If you get into larger projects, those tasks or milestones need to be larger in scope, okay, so you don't bog yourself down too much. And there are plenty of ways to break up an estimate. And if anyone wants to further that discussion or look at some different options, I'm always available to have that discussion with you. You just need to let me know. So let's move on. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and export a file here. We did this in the last video, but I'm going to do it again. Extension spreadsheet. Then we're going to export that file. Again, I'm going to leave these two checked. I'm going to send it to myself. This is my company. Click OK. And save that in downloads. Okay, now we're ready to import that file in. So we're going to switch over to a different software and bring that file in and create a master schedule. Okay, for those of you who have not watched my previous video, this is Construction Profitability Software by Estimateguard. Estimateguard is my company. I built this software. You, contractors, did not provide me with the tools I needed to manage your projects properly, so I built my own software. I have used this system for almost 30 years. About 19 of those years was in spreadsheet format. For the last 11 years, I've had it converted into regular software. Every time I ask to use it, I get told, no, you can't do that. So I use it in the background without anybody knowing. I just do it. Then, when I have success, contractors come to me and say, wow, that really worked out great. How'd you do that? Then I say, you know that software you wouldn't let me use? I used it anyway. Can I use it on the next project? Yes, please. Please use that software. Okay? Let's log in. All right, we're going to start off by creating a new project. Okay, we're going to give our project a name. We'll just call it new project. You can fill in the rest of this information here. It's not necessary. The only two fields that are required is the project name and an average labor rate. Just to keep things simple, I'm going to make that $25 an hour, and I'm going to click update, and then I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to go up here and I'm going to select our project from the list. So new project right there. Now once that's open, I want to look at the phase and task tabs. So as you can see in the task tabs, there are no tasks in here. And on the phase tab, there's no phases in there. So we're going to import that file that I just saved to downloads. And I will surf over to downloads and select it. And then I'm going to upload it. Once it's uploaded, we need to process it. Basically, I need to tell the system which field I'm using for the phase of construction. That's pretty simple in this case. It's the phase field. The task field is actually section. And then we need the total labor hours. I'm not doing any unit tracking on this project. That's a whole nother subject, but I'm going to go ahead and import this data. Once I can do that, you can see that all of the tasks have been imported for the entire project. I want to stop right here and have a quick conversation on this task list and take a little better look at it. We'll start right here by clicking on the edit. Okay, so you can make changes to the task here. The things I want to point out are these three lists right here. One is supervisor, one is margin, one is material handling. Now, most contractors don't include supervision for foreman in their budget. And if it's not included in the budget, it still has to be accounted for because it's not free. My contention is that if it's not in the budget, it has to come out of the labor unit. So what this does is takes 10% of that at time allotted for that task, and it puts it into a supervisor fund for that foreman to use for supervisory tasks like making material lists, laying out workers on what he wants them to do, he or she, and things like that. Now, what that means is, if you have a foreman on your project and he or she is only supervising 2 workers, that gives him 20% of their time for supervisory tasks. Okay, so what's he going to do with the other 80% of his time, he or she? They're going to put their tools on and go to work, right? And start installing some of this material, because that's what they need to be doing. And what I find is, since you are making lead men foreman and they get this big title instead of a raise, once you give them that title, they think they're too important to work. Well, They are too important to work when they have 10 people on their crew, because that's 100%, right? But if they only have 2 workers, they need to be turning screws too. And this is how we hold them accountable to that. They're only getting 20% of that time, okay, to make material lists and lay out workers and do supervisory things. The rest of the time, they need to be turning in time against tasks just like their crews do. Now, I have found that 10% is a pretty good number. There are, of course, projects that require more supervision, and you may want to adjust that up. Right here, you can adjust it at the individual task level. The same for material handling. Now, a lot of projects are very small and you don't need a material handler, but if you need a material handler on your site, and I'm a big advocate of having one, okay, because I like to have my material checked in as it arrives on site, so I know what I have and what I don't have. And also, I like a material handler to organize the material and deliver it to their work area before they start their task. So at the beginning of the week, maybe he or she is shuffling material around the site in preparation for these journeymen coming into that area and installing those tasks. What this does for me is it keeps my journeyman installing material instead of walking around the job site looking for it. I've already told you that the only time you get paid is when material gets installed, and anything that happens other than material getting installed is fluff. So once that journeyman gets the opportunity to walk away from his work area, he's going to go over and talk to his friend the plumber and discuss, their evening of drinking beer or whatever they're going to do, activity. Then probably head out to the Connex, which is going to be a total disaster because there's been other journeymen in there scattering material around. And if it's not organized well, it's hard to find material. And they stop off at the Porta-John to have a quick cigarette break. Stop and call his girlfriend. I don't know what's going to happen. I just know that on some projects, it can be a long walk from the work area, okay, to the material area and back again. And during that whole time, no material's getting installed. And if I can have a lower paid, say, couple-year journey apprentice moving material around for me, someone that understands the different types of material, moving it into the areas in front of these journeymen so they don't have to leave, circulate through the project periodically to, take requests for material, then I get a lot more productivity than I do when journeymen wander around the job site looking for material they can't find. So these supervision material handling default at 10%. You can make them 0 if you want. They're adjustable. The margin has a couple of different uses. One would be, for example, if you are working on a remodel project and this is a lighting conduit and you notice that there's already a conduit in that area that you can strip the wire out of and reuse. You might trim those hours down so you can adjust your margin right here. Maybe you're only going to give them 50 or 25% of the hours just to make sure that conduit's secure and in place and ready to, pull new wire into. Okay, then down here are some other things you can check off. If you want to just make a task a milestone, You can do that by checking it here. We'll get into more of that in a little bit. You can, if it's a milestone, perhaps you don't want it on your job summary, so you don't want to track the hours for it. You can actually hide it from the timesheets or keep it off of the Gantt chart. Just some selections you can make there depending on how you're using this particular task. Okay, let me close this for a second. And you can see that your supervision, your margin, and your materials are all showing up here. If you want to adjust all of these at the same time, maybe you want them all to be 5% instead of 10%. This is where you can adjust them all globally. In other words, all at one time. Just put your percentages in there and click adjust. Over here are folders for each task where you can upload documents. Say, for example, this task has some special material in it. You could put the spec sheets for it in there so they can see what they're dealing with, how it needs to be installed. You can put your drawings in there so they can access their drawing on their phone or an iPad. A material list of the task, complete material list, so they know what material they should have. Just things like that. And then they can click on that task on the Gantt chart, and it'll pull up this folder so that they can pull up any of these documents that they need to reference. Okay, so we'll get into that a little bit more once we get our Gantt chart set up, but all of the information that they need should be right there at their fingertips for every task that requires information. Okay, some are simple enough you don't need to go to that length, but anything that needs special information should be in this folder so they have access to it, so they don't have to come, ask you for that material. Okay, let's move on. Along with the phase of construction, and within each phase of construction, it has allocated all of the tasks along with the hours for each task. So now I have a phase of construction list with all of the associated tasks underneath them. And the next thing that we need to do is build our work breakdown structure. Okay, WBS. But we're not going to call it that because the people in the field don't understand that lingo. They need something a little bit simpler so that it makes sense to them. And back when I was doing my self-study, I did read some very good advice. I think it came from Andrew Carnegie. And it went like this. Every day, make a list of things that you need to do, prioritize them in the order of importance, work on the first item until it's done, and then move to the next item. Now, people, workers in the field, understand to-do lists, okay? So, normally, when a project gets rolling along, and they may be in a certain phase of construction and nearing the end of it, they want to find out where their loose ends are, so they'll walk through the project and they'll make a list of loose ends, and then they'll go back and complete those items and check them off as they go. It's a common practice. So we are just going to call this a to-do list. We're going to build it in the order of importance. So which phase of construction needs to start first, which needs to start second, and so on. If I go back to that phase list, I think this is pretty good, but I'm going to change a little bit of the order. So if I click order phases, I can move all of these over. And I'm just going to select the switch gear and I'm going to move that up to here. And then I'm going to save that sort order. Once I do that, you'll see that our list of phases has changed its order. Now you can also do that under tasks as well. I'm not going to do them because I think they're all pretty much the way I want them. But there is two ways to change the order here. You can move these across in the order that you want them to be built in, or you can just select them and move them around like that, save them, then they'll snap into alignment. Okay, so we're going to put our phases in the order we intend to build the project, our tasks in the order we plan to build the project. That's going to create our to-do list, start to finish, what you might call work breakdown structure. Okay, and then it's going to build an automatic Gantt chart. So we'll take a look at that now. Okay, since this program knows how many hours are allotted for each task, as we get down the road here and time gets entered in against those tasks, it will automatically track completion percentages for each task and each phase of construction. Okay, so there's a summary report in here. We're going to look at that a little bit later. It tells you the health of your project every day. But that's what this is about. We're not going to worry about that right now. You can also print 3-week look-aheads just by placing a date in here. It'll automatically develop a 3-week look-ahead for you to print out and send to your contractor if you want to do that. You can take a look at phases individually by checking them off here. If you leave them all unchecked and just click View Chart, it'll pull up the entire Gantt chart. Okay, here's our Gantt chart, our master schedule. Now, it's not complete, but the framework for it is complete. Our task list is put together over here, our prioritized task list in the order that we plan to build this project. So our workers can start at the very first task and work their way through the project. The work week is adjustable. You can set it for the days that you want and also the hours that you want. That isn't critical. The program will track whatever you actually do and record it for you. You can see that there are two different colored bars right here. One's blue, one's black. The blue would represent your baseline schedule. The black line would be to adjust for a recovery schedule so that you can actually walk your project back into alignment. Down here where it's white will actually fill in with the green bar as you track hours against it, so it'll show you exactly what's happening on the project. And if you go over budget on a task, that bar will automatically turn red. I should say if you go over budget or if you are trending to go over budget, because it will give you some early warnings before you lose money on a task, just to alert you to get out there and take a look at it. We'll look more at that in just a minute. It defaults at a 10-man crew. That's to keep these nice and short in duration, just for setting up the Gantt chart. As you adjust for your crew size right here, it'll automatically adjust the duration, so the length of time. It knows how many hours the task requires. So as you apply the proper crew size to it, it will adjust the duration to match the crew size. I'm not going to go too much deeper into this because I have a completed Gantt chart that we're going to take a look at in a different project. I will tell you that above these tasks, so these are all the tasks, I'm going to add in some action items. So before you start a series of tasks, you want to, for example, make sure the material's on site, right? And perhaps if you're doing some underground work, you might need a backhoe or a trencher on site. You know, there's different things. Subcontractors, if you have some subcontract work, you want to make sure they're on site. Just like to create a checklist so that I can see from my office if those items have been checked off, and they get checked off right here. I don't want any group of tasks to be started until I'm convinced that that crew is ready with everything that they need to complete that series of tasks. So I'm going to create an action item list above there for them to check off to make sure that everything they need is in place before they actually start working on those tasks. We'll take a look at that when we view the actual Gantt chart that I have set up for this project. Okay, that's all I have for now. It is my contention that my methods are better than your methods. And if I'm wrong about that, someone needs to tell me so right down in the comments. And if I'm not wrong about it, you need to start letting me use my methods and quit trying to manage my projects from the office. Okay? Because it's not working. I hope you'll come back for a little more. Next week we'll dig a little deeper, and I appreciate your being here. I really do.